So one may ask, well, what program flow is? Well, program flow simply involves constructs or statements that involve logic and performance in general. So constructs such as if, while, for loop, all of those are useful in creating a program properly and keep it going. So before we get to program flow, I'm going to explain how to define a function, a simple way of defining a function instead of a lambda expression, instead of using a block. You can explain, you can define a function as saying my fun and I'm passing two arguments, a comma b, and I want to define something inside. So I'm just going to define a plus b, see what happens. Now, a function has been declared, and that function is my underscore fun. And the function has two arguments, one is a, the other is b. If we want to execute it, we can execute it just like any other lambda function. So my underscore fun 1,3, I get 4. So functions are a nice way to keep things organized in terms of coding. So it is not good practice to write a lengthy code that's thousands and thousands of lines, which does multiple tasks. So, for example, let's say we are doing plotting, and you want to plot in a certain way with some specifics required for this class, and you want to create 10 different plots. So it is silly for me to do plot, 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 right? And repeat the statements over and over again. Rather, create one function and call that function to plot anytime you want to plot it. Does that make sense? In which case, the lines that you write would actually be few lines and effective. So always try to program effectively. So that is a simple way of defining a function. So let's take another case. I think it's sum. Come again? Yes. Sum x square bracket I, comma 0 and 10. And what just happened? It simply does x sub I all the way from x sub 0 up to x sub 10. In other words, x doesn't have a value. All it's doing is summing an expression. So how do we make this sum, for example, a list? I can define my sum of x I'll put it within parentheses so that I am organized, especially if you have multiple arguments. There is a question of multiple statements. If you have multiple statements in Maxima, say I've got a whole bunch of them within this function, how would I write them? Let's say if I had two statements. First statement, I'm going to use sum. The second statement, I'm going to print the sum is this.
Semicolon.
Semicolon. Let's see if that works. Good guess, but we'll see. So now I have my underscore sum x. I've defined the sum function inside my user defined function, my underscore sum. I'm going to save it to say s. Benton said semicolon. Semicolon. The next statement I want to print. So print the sum is s. Will that work? Why not? That's true. So that means end of line, like we're trying to continue, so it can't be a semicolon. What about the print statement? Will that work? It has to be concatenated first. So concat the string followed by the value that we're going to compute, which is s. Will that work? So I did fix that semicolon to semicolon equals to because I'm trying to define a function. Semicolon is going to give us an error. It should rather be a comma. Mind you, Maxima is based on Lisp. Lisp is a list processing language. So it is going to go one element at a time. So it is a comma, but now would that concat statement work? Did it work?
Yes.
Okay, did it work for you?
Mine did.
I'm surprised.
There's something on my screen. It's not in there.
So,
Oh, no, it didn't. It still doesn't count. I got it now. It does.
right, it still says print, concat, etc. In other words, it did not evaluate yet. So I'm going to define my underscore sum. I want to pass a list. So the way the sum function works is that you have x and indices, just like in R, you have a list here. It creates a set of variables 0, 1, 2, excuse me, x0, x1, all the way up to x10. And I would be the index, and 0 to 10. Over here, it defines the sum properly, just like we would do in math. Summation I equals 0 to 10 xi, but I have not evaluated the sum yet, excuse me, the function yet. So I'm going to use a list -1, 0, oops. 0, 1, 2. Oh, I get an error. It says no such list element. So what do you think the error is?
Because there's no 0 element of the list.
Because there is no 0 element of the list. Why?
Because we start counting at 1.
We start at 1. Okay, let's fix that. Enter. We got rid of that error. Now we got the next error. How do we fix this?
Not the list. That's 10 elements long.
have a list that has 10 elements because I have defined 1 through 10 now. So I need more 5 or well 6, 8, 1 or 6, 1, 2, 2, 3, doesn't matter. 4, 7, 8, 9. How about that? 10. I get the sum is 37. If I want to insert a space, the sum is 37. Good. So we want to create a function which is going to take an input of the list, which is a list, and it should also take the start and end indices of the list to have the sum. So we know when we define sum in Maxima, that would be the variable name. So if you have pass or if you pass a list, that would be the name of the list. I would be the iterator, so that would be the index. So in our case, it will start at 0, x0, and end at 10. I ran a couple of cases to demonstrate that the list cannot start at 0. It has to start at 1. And everything else worked. And when we passed the list, it gave us the sum. Now, I want to create a list in a similar manner, but only this time I want to have the start and end indices of the list specified as inputs. So all I have to do, X is the first input, which is the list that needs to go in, comma, start, comma, end. Good. So that would mean the function is taking 3 inputs. The first input is the list. The second, it is going to pass in something, but I know how to define it inside and how to use it. So I'm going to take start there and put end there. So start, end. Good. It automatically defines the sum. Here, I is going to from the start value, whatever value that you specify, all the way up to the end value. Should have called it as my sum A. What do we expect as an input when I do my underscore sum underscore A? First element is the input X. The second element to the function is start. The third element or argument to the function is 3, which is end. So what do we expect as an answer when we run this function? $15. What did it do? It took the input, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, started with the element 2, which in our case is 2, because the starting index is 2. Ending index is 3. So it is going to add those two indices, or the values in those two indices. The 2 plus 3 is 5. If, for instance, I use the same command, what should we expect? An error. Why?
There's not a fixed set of element of the list.
Yes. So when I specify this list, I'm also specifying, okay, I'm going to pass in a 4-element list, but I want you to add the numbers in position 2 all the way up to position 9. That's not possible. The list here has only 4 elements. Does that make sense? So given the choice between my underscore sum and my underscore sum underscore a, which is better? My underscore sum underscore a, because you're generalizing it more, it becomes more effective. Does that make sense? So now that I've defined or showed you how to define a function, now I'm going to start with a logical construct, an if statement. Let's define x to be 10, if I can. If x is greater than 2, then, now pay close attention to the use of parentheses. It's very important. Print, give me a sentence. X is something interesting, Chris. X is greater than 2. Fine, it's okay. Otherwise, don't tell me x is not greater than 2. Give me a sentence.
Fine. Statistics is a subset
Statistics is a subset
of math.
of math. What, do you think I take offense?
I mean, you did last month.
It's a subfield of maths. You know, that could be the case, but statistics is better. We need math, but we just use it. That's it. Good. Let's see if this works. Yes. Simply asking a question. If this is true, then do that. Otherwise, else, do this. Good. So if I change x to -10, I get statistics is a subfield of mathematics. Yes. So I just had a simple statement in the body of the construct. So all I had here is one statement. If I want to write a bunch of statements inside there, what should I use? Between statements. Commas, not semicolons. So if you want to keep on adding statements, comma, separated by commas. Also, parentheses. So everything that you put inside open and close parentheses after the then statement is the body of the if statement. Everything that follows else within parentheses would be the body corresponding to the else statement. Good. Sometimes we want to test more than one condition. You know, life is not this. You can either do it simultaneously or you can do it in succession. If at all possible, good programming practice is to find a way to do it simultaneously and keep it concise. But I'm going to show you how to do things in succession or test for different conditions separately. So I'm going to start with if x greater than 2, then give me a statement. Print no. You guys are very engaging, so I'll just type something. I want another condition, not just if x greater than 2. Print, there's a reason. So I have three statements, three conditions. The first condition is if x is greater than 2, then I would print tacos are good. Else, if x is greater than 10, which is the condition, then I would print burritos are good. Otherwise, I'm going to print nachos are good. Yes? Of x is negative 10. Yes. So, going to run this, what should we expect? Nachos are good. Rightfully so. Because of x, not that nachos are good. Going to define x to be 12. Which would mean x is going to take on the value 12. And then I want to use this construct that I have and perform a logical test. So the way that I define that if statement is if x is greater than 2, print tacos are good. Else if x is greater than 10, the burritos are good. Else print nachos are good. And this time, I'm going to use the value of x to be 12. What do we expect as an answer? What? Why?
There's one, two, and two, so it stops at the end.
So the way an if statement works is it will go in sequence. The moment a true happens, a true statement happens, it'll just stop. So very first statement is true. So it doesn't need to go any further. So it just stops right there. 12 is greater than 10. It is greater than 2, but it happened at the very first statement, so it's not going to go any further. This is true no matter what programming language you have. You know, it could be MATLAB, or this is how it would behave. Are we clear?